time for us to do the things that make us smile. It's time. Hello, YouTube. It's great to be with you, and I hope you are well. I am coming to you on this anniversary of when I got out of the mental health system unscathed. I am very grateful for I realized while I was there that bad things happen to people who are there, and we don't know how to talk about those dirty things that happen behind these scenes because we are so ashamed of what happened to us. And so then we just don't say anything other than it's too bad. And when we just say, okay, I'll let you be who you are instead of focusing on whose we are, that's what we must return to. What I realized is that in the mental health system, that's where we lose our connection to our source. If we put an authority between ourselves and what we know best for us, and let someone else say, I know better than you do. Did you know that a psychiatrist's first responsibility is to convince you that they're right, and they know what's better for you more than you do, and it's time to know that's not true. We do already, but we can't let go of the fact maybe there is someone else that knows better because they went to school for 8 or 10 years, and so they're devoted, dedicated, indoctrinated. It's true, don't you know that we live indoctrination? It is true that we are the result of the culture you are. It's the cultural sensation that we revere because it is how we grow in fear until we know that we can be whoever we choose to be. And last year when I called myself in to say the system was corrupt and that I was here to help with a peaceful movement inward, and then I said these things I'm still saying, except then I was deemed crazy and sentenced to a Form 1, then Form 3, which means I went from a 3-day involuntary. They said it was voluntary, but it wasn't. Form 1, and then 2 weeks, Form 3, and then it goes on longer. There are 5 you can get sentenced to, and when you get to the end, it is a life sentence. I'm not kidding. You can get locked up for life because a doctor whose authority we're supposed to give credit to because they have a role, and that's not the way we need to base our world. It's time for us to take our power back, which is why we will gather in a peaceful Warriors United Summit on the October 22nd at 4 p.m. till 7 Eastern Standard Time. Yes, it's true that we will talk about peace and how we bring that into ourselves, because if we cannot learn to be a friend to ourselves, then how do we expect to be friendly to others when we can't give what we don't have? Do I sound insane? No, insanity is doing what we always did, and this is not when have you last been sung a song as important as this. I'm not saying it's more important than anyone else's message, but I am saying, when do you get delivered a message like this from one who was released from the insane asylum a year ago today, and also the 5-year anniversary from when I moved back from when continued to grow, and then I changed my self-image, and I believe I'll have a chance to come together and unite in a way we've been told that we can't. But I say, if we drop the boxes and decide to let the BS we believe in, the belief systems, be the foundation, and let us be willing to share our BS and put it on the table to share how it refines to a virtue that we can use in the creation of a new way for us to build humanity. That's what we came here to do, my friends. It's true, we are here for so much more than we could even imagine, and so I welcome you to believe and the power and beauty of who and whose you truly are. And it is true that we now have a chance to decide who we will choose to be based on those virtues that we get from the box that we put God into. But instead of trying to keep him, her, it inside of those walls that we used to keep us safely separate from each other, which is how we actually lose power, because it's better if we can magnetically work off each other. And so it's time for us to believe in ourselves enough to say maybe the things that we thought when we thought them were not the right timing, but it doesn't mean that the things that we thought were totally off. The things that I said last year when I got myself sentenced to the crazy house, I'm grateful because I learned and I didn't break and allow them to tame the wild bull spirit within me. It's not a challenge, no. Please understand that that is not what I came here to do. Although I do, not because I try to, but I buck the system. And I hope you will too, because the system is an abusive parent that is poisoning the children's minds with it's called Munchausen syndrome. Have you heard of that, where a child is treated like a patient and then becomes willing to believe they are sick? And that is what is happening now. Would you agree? I'm not claiming to know the truth so far as the overall picture, but I can say I believe that I am tuned into what could happen because I experienced it last year inside of the system, the heart of the beast. That's where I went, and then I had to figure out how to get myself out of there. And I used a story a friend had shared before I went. He'd shared about King David and how he was supposed to be out at war and decided to stay home, and then saw this beautiful woman bathing on her roof. And so he found out who her husband was and had him sent to the front lines as a soldier to be killed, so then she would be a widow and he would be able to secure her faith and property, because that is what she is traded for in this world. A woman is property. That's why whenever someone asks me whether I want to be married, the truth is no thank you. I need to meet a man, and I'd be open to say if it's right, it'll happen. But even see, now I trip up because then I go into my mind, and so I just say this is not my priority right now. My priorities is to say we're at a tipping point in collective consciousness, and all that we went through before now, all of it defined us to now and can be used as context only. We must understand that we cannot expect that we are going to be who we were yesterday, today, just because that was the way we went to bed and put our head on the pillow. Now we get to choose otherwise. We get to decide that we will be the ones that we take charge and stand for what we believe in. It's time for us to know that we are the ones who may not be fully insane, and yet we will be deemed crazy because crazy is different and people don't like the things that make them feel unsafe. And yet we must know the variety is the second piece to certainty. Those are the two fundamental motivational needs according to Tony Robbins. And then he says that if you go from certainty, variety, you reach belonging, which is connection, and significance, love, growth, and contribution. Those are the equivalent of Maslow's survival, safety, belonging, respect, and then self-actualization. Mastery is what we have a chance to do for ourselves. That's why we must continue to grow, and why I thank you for tuning into the show, and to say that I know that you're here for something great. And if you're watching this right now and you're not sure what that is, please understand that you are one who holds the light, and that you are a torchbearer who is lighting up other fights. Inside, there is a good and a bad side to all of us, and we are fighting each other. That she-devil evil part of us that sits on our shoulder and suggests that we do things against our nature, and all of the conditioning, programming, and cultural, can't think of another word beyond the two that I said, and sometimes that happens, and so then just go with the flow and let go of the mistake. Don't hold on to the past, let the dead bury the dead, and then say, I'm going to bid you adieu, because in 5 minutes, Micheila Sheldon will be going on a radio show to talk about the true warrior spirit. I shared the link in the post before I shared this one, so please just go to my page, and then you will be able to sign up to receive that broadcast live. Micheila is great. She is very switched on and connected, but then please understand that whenever we enter the realm of channeling, that is in the astral plane, which has 12 positive and negative dimensions, and so we must be conscious about which aspect of it we are taking into us, and to then also say that this is the way. I'm grateful to have celebrated the anniversary of when I regained my freedom, and then had to process all of what I'd been through. The trauma and drama could have tackled me and taken me out, and it did at times, but I rose back like a phoenix, except that to mythical creature symbolism, it has been imbued with all kinds of links to occultism that we don't understand because we just don't know. But when we know, then we can do something better, and that's what we're doing right now. We are willing to take a stand and say, the cray are the ones who can be the change we seek in this world. Go check out Micheila in 5 minutes. I'll be there too. And then I will say to you, I wish you a great night or day wherever you are in this world. And I hope that you'll share this message of hope, and then also know that on the October 22nd, it is a Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. UK. It's time for us to come together, and so we will be joining together in the name of the light to discuss the options as to how we can bring peace to Earth and drop the walls on all of these boxes that used to keep us feeling safely separate. No longer are they able to do so. We just must be willing to unite and say that maybe we're more similar than different after all, and if we fight to defend the differences and to put walls up, then we will remain unsafe, because truly it is only when we come together and can be stronger together, so long as we trust the ones that we have teamed up with, which is why we must understand human nature and the fact that there are many kinds of us here. That is true, and we all know it. Wouldn't you say? That's the way. I hope that you'll stay connected and to know you can go with the flow in your own way. It is time for me to say, part of me wants to just keep you alive as I listen to Micheila live myself, and then I don't want to violate any IP or intellectually property rights. And so I might just have to close this down unless someone has a question, in which case I'd have to stick around to answer it, and then I would also have to get over to the show too. So what would you do but keep it on? I just want to know that I'm not alone in this world, and I know that I'm not. And then I want to also say that in the last year, since I got my freedom back, I've learned a whole tremendous lot. Thank you. I've been incredibly well indeed. And then also learning and growing a lot and taking a stand even more powerfully for what I believe in. And I say you do too. It's time for us to take a stand for what we believe in, or we risk falling for anything, and we cannot afford that because it's easier to push back when we are further upstream than when we are right at the cusp of the edge of the waterfall, when we are going with all of the current against us and we get nearly to the end. That's not when we take a stand and say no more. We gotta do it sooner than later, my friends. Let's do it now. Let's gather together and figure out a plan, because we've got to withstand the pressures that come with someone else demanding authority over us. We are the ones who have power over ourselves, it's true. And so that is why we have to be willing to step up to the plate and say, I will stand for my freedom and the freedom of all of our species. That's what we are facing right now, my friends. This is not you or me, just in this alone, with our families to consider. This is the overtaking of humanity. If we don't stop it, I know it sounds really dramatic, but what else is cinema then? That sometimes actually it is time for Micheila Sheldon's show. And so now I'll just give you a taste. It is true. I hope you enjoy it. The true warrior spirit. I can't wait. It's going to be magical. Starseeds will always win. Yes, Brooke. And then we must also recognize it takes time to join live. Oh my. We are going in, my friends, listening to Micheila Sheldon talk about what? Oh. I have to do a password. Wasn't expecting that, but it's okay. Ooh, 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 ah, 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 oh, 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 The webinar has not yet begun, but we can still have some fun. It's like the radio show. The meeting has begun.
The amazing Micheila Sheldon on, talking about the true warrior spirit, but so much more than just talking about it. It's, oh my God, it's, you know, every time Micheila's on, there's like this resonance and this charge and this amplification that happens in my energetic body. And it's just the transmission, the information, what who and what shows up and how it shows up. It's just so beautiful for me. And I feel the visceral sensations of, I'll call it the spirits, the guides that are showing up. And it's just always uplifting and next level every single time. So it's not to put any pressure on you, Micheila. It's always that for me. And I just trust that there's more of that. We've already started, and it started to come in
the true warrior
in
spirit.
the pre-call.
And
So
Micheila Sheldon
I hope that you guys
that.
take the time and drop in and be present
So
with
I would
us,
love
because
for you
I
to be able to
truly
listen to
feel
what
that
I'm
this is
listening
just
to.
going to be extraordinary.
Woo!
And there's some things that Micheila's going to cover, and we've had some similar energies running, and I love the way Micheila puts it into perspective for me, because again, it helps to augment what's coming in, and y'all are going to benefit from that. You may have been having maybe similar experiences. So I'm going to read the bullet points that Micheila brought up, because she wrote these up, and it's in that energy, and it's so important. So Micheila talks about true warrior spirit is an eternal and infinite source that may become easily hidden by physical circumstances, appearing stronger than its presence. To reclaim the spirit, it's important to understand that no outer condition is a match to the love and the power you hold within. The purpose of conflict and resistance are to show you the way back home. The inner peace and tranquility reveal the roadmap to its destination. In times of great change, it's possible to transition abundantly and in alignment with desired outcomes, even if it seems impossible to achieve. The warrior spirit within thrives when focused upon service and holding space for the abundance of others. But in the current energies, it may become challenging to balance the needs of self and others, or know when to hold or take the best action. Join Micheila, join us as she reveals what loving ascended masters like Lakshmi, Mary Magdalene, Ishtar, Divine Mother have been sharing about activating the true warrior spirit to guide us through the current earth transition. So amazing call in. Micheila, why don't you share a little bit about the work that you do and your connection and how that's facilitated the people that you work with?
So in terms of what I do on a global scale, is I believe that I'm here to help this transition along. And this has really become more clear to me as I've stepped in, at the beginning of my journey. I was given a lot of messages that at the time seemed to make sense, but now are just becoming so abundantly clear that this is such an incredible and important timeline that we all chose. And my role in this is to help everyone exactly where they are in whatever situation they're in to transition in the best way possible by bringing these guides through me. And it's just been such a blessing and such an honor to be in that position and be able to share these messages, which have supported me for so many years and continue to support me. Because I am here too, as a human soul walking this journey with all of you. And lately it's been pretty intense, not only, of course, on the planet, but the shifts I've seen in non-physical and what the guides are showing me within the earth. So I've been getting a lot of visions and a lot of downloads about where this is headed and how we can navigate it.
It's so wonderful. And again, there's a lot of similarity what's coming in. One of the intensities that have been happening for me, it's a repositioning. And I've talked this on different shows before. And it's initiation into receiving, having our capacity to receive, extend beyond what we could have imagined was possible. And with the energy of Lakshmi, I'm not sure how much that is associated with the abundance energy that she brings in, but I'd love it if you would tie that in and also share what the messages from Lakshmi. She's been so strong for me. And Mary Magdalene also, it's been so just pronounced and fulfilled.
Well, Lakshmi is new to me. I have never, probably in private session, but never in more collective events and things, channeled Lakshmi. But several months ago, she started coming in and was inspiring me to create a focal point in my home, hence the altar grid in the background that I've been working with over the last couple of months. And it started very simple. She encouraged me to put together a focal point where I could nourish the energy. And for me personally, I love that, because when things get confusing in the outer world and we don't really have the ability to discern and decipher, that overwhelm sets in, to have something that is so connected, to someone like Lakshmi it's amazing. And so I started to meditate with it, and one day I put my breakfast together. I had this really beautiful breakfast of just nuts and seeds and fruit, and was staring at the bowl. And she came in and stood beside me, and she said, "As you're looking into that bowl, imagine this multiplying and duplicating, and send the energy of it into this grid, into this focal point that we've created." Not just feeling the gratitude or the abundance for yourself, which is something that I know so many on this call have been taught and we've practiced for such a long time, but actually feeling into the abundance of it in such a way that you're sending it to everyone else on the planet who can experience it with you. And this was really interesting to me, and very simplistic, where I thought, my gosh, if this bowl of breakfast could feed everyone on the planet, how would that feel? So I started working with this, just with food. She started to have me work with this, mealtime and things like that. And the receiving part is kind of interesting, because it isn't just material. Although I have to say, I did have some crazy synchronicities start to happen, which the first day she had me working with the food, my neighbor across the street, who works with organic farms, who I barely talk to, walked over with a free bag of organic produce and put it on my porch. And which, the goal of this is not to just receive for the self, but what it began to teach me is that when we get into this frequency of wanting to support and serve the collective with what we appreciate that is already existent in our life, it creates this flow state where it simply begins to show up in abundance, where there's so much for the self that it spills over into sharing with others. And she began to teach me that through this grid, through this focal point, I could create an energy that would encompass my home and encompass the neighborhood and encompass the whole community. And we began to work with it and fan it out. And I just really got into this beautiful practice where it started to become automatic. Just getting in a hot shower and thinking about the abundance of water and how we sometimes take that for granted, but there's so many people on the planet who would benefit from that, and not knowing how to serve that in physical, getting into the frequency of abundance and sharing it in that way. It just put me into another subtle state of constant appreciation. I did it when I was balancing my checkbook. She came in and said, imagine yourself writing blank, I was writing checks and sending them out, into the grid. And I think this is really where we are moving in terms of receiving, where we've been so focused on the self. And yes, we're definitely moving into a time where resources perhaps are going to be more restricted in certain locations, or might shift in terms of our accessibility. And we are certainly meant to be abundant. All of us are meant to be abundant. But what I think this energy that I've created in my life is actually doing is it's leading me to valuable insights on how I can actually physically serve. It's kind of like a bullseye in the target, and then when you're shooting the arrow, all of a sudden these inspired actions, right, and these connections are made, whereby I began to work with my own, mission and look at things that I could assemble and put together, and other resources that I had in my life and how they could affect the collective in a bigger way. So it just began to become this chain reaction where not only was I personally thriving, but I was narrowing my focus in terms of how I serve.
Yeah, and in that, as that abundance flows in through you, you can't help but to know that you're doing it for others at the same time, but there's a humility that rolls through it. I've had an opportunity also where there's amazing opportunities coming in, and yes, I've been seeing it for a long time, and I've been feeling it and all this, and as I talk to people about it, as it's starting to anchor in, and at the end of every time I mention it, and I go, but this is for us. And I think that's the difference.
Yes.
All of this abundance that we're creating is for us.
Yeah, it's really a different experience than what we're used to. I think that moving into what a lot of us talk about as the 5D, or the new Earth, it's going back in time to unity consciousness and more of a collective focus than what we're used to. And it's really about us because we are all connected. And the most abundant resource we have is that connection. The experiences that we have with others are our greatest source of energy. And so we want to facilitate that, and we want to connect more at a time on the planet where we're so stifled from that connection. Lakshmi is really teaching us that it can start in non-physical first and then make logical connections in the outer world.
Beautiful. So beautiful. All right, I want to get into Mary Magdalene, and then I want to tie it in how Lakshmi, Mary Magdalene, and these other just divine beings that are communicating with you, how they tie into the true warrior spirit.
Well, they're all true warriors themselves, aren't they? But not the typical warrior we think of. And that's what they were definitely pointing out to me, is that sometimes the warrior takes this stance of, the position of fighting in attempting to, gain and navigate in ways that aren't as healthy. And what they taught me is their training went into non-physical at a very early age. So many of them, although they seem to exist in different, cultures and different timelines, have such a common thread when it comes to balancing physical and non-physical. And I'll tell you this really incredible story that Mary brought through in one of the transmissions. And it was in response to navigating the unknown, or walking through fearful situations, which I'm sure we can all relate to in a moment. And she was talking about how in some of the ancient mystery schools, they would go on these scavenger hunts in the dark. They were led through the darkness, but utilizing their sensory, whereby it wasn't jumping from the beginning point to the end, but taking very small steps and feeling their way, almost like an outstretched arm in the darkness to feel the hot or the cold or the hair standing on end and what direction to turn, and trusting in that.
Wow.
So I think the relationship between Lakshmi and Mary and many others is that their inner warrior spirit is a reliance on their sensory, their inner truth, their inner feeling. And this is where I think our spiritual evolution and embodiment really come together right now. So that's what I see the relationship being, is they all have an interesting story to tell that, although is very different, relies on very similar things in order to accomplish their assignments, or their missions.
Oh my God, this is so amazing. And again, it's revealing what we're embodying. I mean, we're going through these ceremonies, we're going through these initiations, we're anchoring in this into physical forms through the different experiences that we have. Now, what are some ways that we can use to reveal our own personal gateway for that true warrior spirit, Micheila?
Well, I think what's first important is that we have to let go of the things that no longer fit who we are. And I think that's one of the biggest things that holds us back from really uncovering our courage and our strength. So there are aspects of us that are safe and comfortable, although we know they no longer resonate with who we've become or beliefs we've uncovered. And it's such a hard thing to do, right? But I think if we can take those steps forward to release what we know doesn't suit us anymore, we make more space And I think that's really where the knowing comes in, because sometimes we're forcing it, we're pushing it too much. And of course, there's so much going on the planet today that we want to serve. It can become, especially for light workers, sensitives, empaths, it can become so overwhelming that it's a stopping point to us. Mary Magdalene came in, I think it was Mary, maybe it was Divine Mother. She was helping us remember that we've been of service since the day we were born. We get so caught up in judging ourselves over what we haven't done that she had us spend some time actually acknowledging the fact that we've been here and we've done really good things. And they may look a little different than what we think we need to do in the future. But nonetheless, when we use that as a launching pad, we can easily uncover the next leg of the journey, because it's always going to change. Initially, what we talked about in this course was the creation of Sophia, the creation of Earth, the original harmonic fields upon which Earth herself was born. And that's really, I think, what we're uncovering right now, is that original harmonic we were born within. We were talking a little bit about, I think you said, retooling or resetting. I think we're recreating ourselves into what we were always meant to be, which is that authenticity and truth of who we are. Our creativity, everything that we value and prefer has a place in our life, and it's a guidepost to how we serve. But sometimes we don't see the relationship there because we don't think it's important, or we don't think it's as important as what others are doing. So getting out of the judgment, getting out of looking at our past as not serving and not accomplishing things is the starting point, I think, to truly uncover that. And then we go from there. But what Lakshmi taught brilliantly fits into this, because to be of service, we really have to make space in our consciousness, in our mind, to see what other people need from us and how we can, fit that role uniquely on the planet. And I think it can start really simply in our families, with our neighbors, in our communities, and grow from there.
Yeah. And that's so empowering, because again, so many of us for so long have projected on the outside of being of service. I want to help, I want to heal, I want to do all these other things because we see and feel the suffering outside, but we really have to go within. It's like, wait, where are we suffering inside? What is it in our suffering that wants to fix the suffering in someone else? And if we can get back into that intimacy of ourselves and the integrity of that, and we can't help but start affecting from that altered place those people around us in our direct vicinity. And that creates the ripples that then allows the opportunity for those other things also to be in coherence with what we're carrying, for us to witness it, if you will, and for it to become an expression of it. So it's so interesting. What do they say about those big blocks, about fear, uncertainty, about our bodies taking on so much in its physicality with the energies that are streaming through?
Mm-hmm. Well, our bodies are sentient. They're energetic, and they're our best tool right now. But we also have a collective human body, a collective human mind, and we're really moving more into this telekinetic connection, that coherence, that you're talking about. So I think it's important to acknowledge that everything that we are working with right now is blending together in a way we've never used it before. And, I've noticed that, first of all, with my own intuitive gifts and abilities, where I had certain processes or things that I would do that are really no longer necessary, for me to carry out the tasks that I accomplish. And it is a reliance upon something that isn't physical. It's not a measurement, in other words. So a lot of times when we have these roadblocks or word fear, of what might happen, we're so out of body. And that's a theme that the guides have been bringing in about this that we're currently experiencing, is that it's really easy to become ungrounded, or outside of your body, because there is a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort and a lot of unknown. And so fear is really a really useful, let's say powerful emotion when we're able to use it in the present moment context. But being we'll say ungrounded or out of body, we tend to get way out of range of where that is. And that's where we have to ensure that we're practicing mindfulness and, quantum presence. And as simplistic as that sounds, I think it makes a huge difference in our nervous system. I think it helps us to, efficiently allow all of these different processes that are reuniting to come back together. For me, something that I've learned long ago that I still rely on today is a daily practice of bringing in my higher self. It's just an intention or a statement that I make. And I allow my higher self to guide me to whatever I need to know, to address whatever I don't understand, or guide my day to the most important tasks. A lot of the fear in the collective is really coming from perceived consequences, what's coming down the road. And we're creating a personal hologram every single day that is going to intersect with potentials. Mm-hmm. And we're in that's this true warrior spirit we're talking about. We're really in the driver's seat of that. So if we want to experience safety in our lives and we want to experience things that are in alignment with our desires and beliefs, we really have to stay aligned with this higher power that knows the way for us, and trust that it is going to navigate us very safely and efficiently to the outcomes we already planned, long before coming.
Yeah.
So we're moving into this time where our technology is working better, but we're not really used to relying on it in the way that we can and should, that helps us to move past that fear.
And for me, I translate that it's also attuning through our physicality. We're allowing to calibrate all the way through. We've been taught for so long to stop it short, or to judge it or condemn it if it came a certain way or not. Mm-hmm. And it's allowing the full experience to actually flow all the way through, and the intelligence of that, the acclimation to it, the intimacy of it is something that we no longer turn away from because we don't recognize it, or we'd rather not feel it, or it's too sure. It reminds us of a past reference that we would rather not revisit. But by allowing to be present with it, allowing ourselves to truly feel it somatically, emotionally, our etheric body to be with it as well, there's an intelligence and a power that we attune to that then it never leaves us. So fear is not something that we fear anymore. Fear is something that we welcome as we would welcome Mary Magdalene. It's like, oh, you're trying to share with me something that I'm going to translate in a way that I haven't before. And how powerful that is.
We can think about it this way too, John. This is an interesting analogy that came in for me. When fear arises, a chain of events take place in our body. And if we have to lift the car off a human body, we have the power to do that because that fear is changing us alchemically. But what's happened is we have gotten so out of touch with our bodies, and we've gotten into this state of inorganic fear, which is false and constantly going on. But if we allow the fear to be there momentarily, what begins to happen is that chain of events is going to create that alchemical change, not only to give us the strength and physical, but to bring in all of this intelligence from the universe that we're supposed to connect with authentically and support every decision we make, every turn in our life. And that's what I think we're really bringing in right now that can be so useful to us. So I don't think the fear itself is necessarily bad. It's just when we stay in the fear a little too long, that it takes on a false turn.
Well, and that's where the word integrity comes in for me. It's like there's an integrity that's arising within us. And when we get into those false turns, we're out of integrity with ourselves, with the energy running through us. And it's a calibration that we're learning to dance with. So all these things that have been culminating in our collective consciousness and the different conversations that perhaps are looping people into reactions, or even being aware that other people are in reaction. It's all part of, again, us attuning back into what's an integrity for us at the moment. How do we be present with that, intimate with it, relate to others from that, and then allow the collective to reform based on the intimacy that we're having with it as well. So it's a beautiful chain of events that, for me, seems to be happening. It's an alchemy that's really, I feel, aligning for all of us. I think it's celebrating in so many different ways. And yes, I have a tremendous amount of compassion, and there's so many things that are happening for us. And I truly hold that solid in my knowing. Speaking of things that are to come, you mentioned it earlier. What's been your guidance about that? What's been your guidance about the next few months into the beginning of next year?
Well, going back, listening to some of my channeled messages, this was presented as a time of dismantling, where a lot of the structure that we created in the third dimension is no longer able to come with us where we're headed. It's like when consciousness expands and we try to go backwards and put it into a box, things are going to break apart. It's kind of like those jeans from when you were 16. I'm never going to fit into my 16-year-old jeans again, no matter how long I try, how hard I try. And that's kind of what the analogy of what's happening on the planet is we've just expanded our consciousness and raised our vibrations so much that what we've manifested around us doesn't have a logical fit. And that's why things have been so confusing and chaotic, and there's all this polarity, and one day it's this and the next day it's that, and the science says this and the numbers say that. It is an imploding system. And where we're headed next, it exists in the frequency of peace, in the frequency of freedom. And I think we know a lot of the old structure isn't based in that foundation. Not that it was wrong, okay, but it was formed through our consciousness, which was different. It was different then. So things are speeding up, I think, over the next few months. A little more polarity, a little more chaos, trying to exist in the old grid model is going to become more and more confusing and difficult. But the opposite of that is the fifth dimension, the new grid, whatever you want to call it, the new earth. It exists as well. So we know this. All of the new structures have already made an appearance. And what our goal is to navigate ourselves through our preference and to our comfort level to these new structures, to create them in our lives, to ground them to the earth. And I think it's going to be a pretty fast-moving energy to deal with. We have shifting resources like financial currency. I think that's going to be a big one that plays out, right? And I look at it this way. The financial currency that we manifested is in a hierarchical model that doesn't suit us anymore. And it's kind of like what Lakshmi is bringing in about no separation. We want this for everyone. We're walking into new monetary structures and systems that are going to be more beneficial for the collective. But for a while, they're going to be somewhat unstable.
Yeah.
The guides are talking about, forward, back, push, pull, tug of war. And it's like when we pull a rubber band, two sides of a rubber band, eventually that rubber band's going to snap in one side or the other. And I really think that's what we're here to experience. I talked about this, I think, in the last time we were together, the concept of resistance. and how it's really so positive. It's actually a good thing, because when resistance builds to this degree, we know it's moving us towards something we've already created in non-physical, but it's just taking that push to get us there. So I think that resistance is going to show up in more abundance because it's pushing us faster. It's helping us to make the right choices, and to bring this new earth in quicker.
What's also happening for me, and I feel like we're getting more in touch with subtle realms more than we ever have before.
Yeah.
So that's becoming more present in my experience. And how's that affecting us? What's the opportunity through that?
Well, that's mass awakening, I think.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, because non-physical and physical right now is truly what we are trying to balance. And I look at where we've been. It's just been such an incredible journey through spiritual awakening, hasn't it? Connecting with guides and our higher self, and doing all this purging, density clearing. We've just done so much work. But now we're learning how to embody that in a moment to moment, day to day scenario. And that's like walking in, these subtle energy fields in our bodies, which is pretty cool when we think about it. But I do think there's a consequence to this that's hard to deal with. And that is the subtle empathies and, the sensing that we feel from other people that we take on as our own. And I think this is having an effect right now on the nervous system, because we're attempting to calibrate this coherent energy that you talked about. And that's where we feel into everyone else's experience. But there's communication there. It's also how we understand how we serve. But the message that I brought in previously, about how we judge ourselves. Sometimes we judge ourselves through the energies of others.
Yeah.
We don't know how to sort it all out. So I think that's really what we're walking through as well, is just understanding how incredibly powerful we are, and that we are becoming multidimensional.
Mm-hmm.
The guides have always said that the fifth dimension is a gateway to multidimensionality. And so that's a lot to go with. It's a lot of Akashic information. It's a lot of new access. So it is going to take some time for us, especially those that haven't been here for a very long time, right? To figure out how to work with that and how to use it.
What's coming up for me, and it's so beautiful also, it's the reminder, is yes, this is coming up for us and we're experiencing this. But Micheila, you experience it all the time in sessions with people, the support that we have from those subtle realms, from Lakshmi, from Mary, from Mother Teresa, from Buddha, from Christ, from Gandhi, from all, it's just the support is there. And a lot of the suffering that we may feel, we also have the ability to call in that support, to call in that love, to be held by that subtle field.
I can't tell you how many sessions I've done lately with people who are just beginning to awaken to these messages and connections, and are so overwhelmed and don't know what to do with them. And they've been here all along, but now we just have the ability to connect with it more viscerally, which I totally love. It's so incredible, the amount of support that we have. But interesting to consider that if we do have that support and we recognize it, we're matching it as well.
Right. Yeah.
And we don't often see ourselves that way, that we are the Mary Magdalenes and the Buddhas and the Jesus on earth. And that's why they're all here right now, because they couldn't be unless we were also one with them.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you think part of the alchemization process that we're going through also, as we're matching that energy, that in their love, that sometimes they won't seem as close as they used to, so that we can learn that we're walking this, that we're holding it, that we're being that true warrior spirit?
I think there are times I go through times, and it's confusing because I feel like you did something wrong. And I get this in session all the time. I had such a strong connection and now it's gone. You know, what did I do wrong? And usually the answer is that you did something right.
Yeah.
You know, this is now a process that you're going through. And I think that vibration works that way. You know, we call in messages and have downloads and guides, and then we put all of that into action. You know, it plays out, and our focus needs to be in physical for a short time in order to move along. Because let's face it, it'd be great to, I'd love to stay in meditation all day with Mary Magdalene, right? But that's not why I came here.
Right.
You know, it's not why I came here. So it's great to have her, but I do, you know, certainly know that we have to go through periods where we implement what we learn. And they're very respectful, very, very respectful and in reverence of that. Because they too have been here on Earth in very physical, similar situations. You know, and know how important it is.
Oh, amazing. What's coming from Micheila? Oh my God, I want to open up to Q&A because I can feel the questions coming in already. So I want to invite y'all to raise your hands. And to do that, click on the participants little icon at the bottom of the screen. I think it's on the Mac, it's at the bottom of the screen. If you're on a PC, I don't know. On the Mac, it's at the bottom of the screen. Click on that and it'll allow you to raise your hand. Or you can type your question into the chat box or the Q&A box, and I'll go through those as Micheila answers, and we'll open this up. As I place y'all as participants, I'm going to ask you not to unmute yourself until I call on you, please, so we can keep the flow of this going just really gracefully for everybody involved. So I actually want to ask one of the first questions. I'm going to take time, and we have to get into the special offers first. The white feathers on your altar. I've been having white feathers coming to me, like falling. Oh. One was next to my car. Another one just flew down. I was meditating on the mountain ridge. Just all of a sudden landed like 3 feet away from me. And it's like, okay, what's up with the white feathers?
I love it. I just sign of purity and connection. It's so intimate and unique, you know, to your guides and your situation. I've had that too. And sometimes it's funny. It's the same as the connection we were talking about previously, where it goes away. I'm like, I want the feather. Where's the feather? But it's so much more special when it, you know, it doesn't come all of the time. But yeah, I think the synchronicities can come so fast, the instantaneous manifestations and acknowledgements. I've been getting that for sure. You know, when I'm thinking about something or I have a question, it's just dropping in. And yeah, I love that they provide those little, you know, pats on the back.
Yes, sure. Thank you for that. Oh, amazing. All right, let's go now. It's, you know what? As I make y'all panelists, let's take the opportunity as I roll through that. Let's go into the special offer. April, will you put the special offer in the chat box? As April types it in, it'll pop up in the chat box and you'll be able to click on that link and it'll take you to the special offer page. You can also access, and I love what you've created, Micheila, the offer page by typing into your web browser beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Micheila23. And then it'll take you to that same page. And Micheila, guide us through. This is so good.
It was so good. It's still so good.
I love it. Yes.
This is new. So this is if you've been with me before, or if you haven't, these are brand new channel transmissions, very fresh and new, with all of these beautiful guides: Lakshmi, Mary Magdalene, Divine Mother, Ishtar. I had Kali, Joan of Arc was present, just so many beautiful, loving guides. And it's called the True Warrior Spirit because that's what it is helping us to uncover. But something really unique and special about this course was the guide shared that in past timelines, ancient civilizations, teachers to create templates or lay grids within the earth. And these were at times when there were great cataclysms or challenges within the human collective. And they would use these to activate higher potentials or to move energy. And this is exactly what we did as a part of this course.
Wow.
So not only did we all build an altar grid focal point, we went through initiations where we were keyed to them and created a larger vibrating template within the earth that is still there to participate with. Now, this grid is actually surging through and into the core to raise up new earth potentials. It is helpful for you as an individual to not only navigate this time on the planet and receive the abundance and resources that you need, but we're also serving through it. So we're focused on it, we're sending energy into it, and it's just amazing. So if you choose the journey, there are six channel transmissions that you'll encounter through all these loving guides, and they were really, really special. All of them included activations and processes. So it's very heavy in vibrational work. And we did a beautiful and powerful diamond crystal activation using this grid, where we not only received and cleared, but we offered humanity a lot of love and a lot of support. I am actually doing a final live 2-hour transmission and Q&A this coming Monday. So it's not too late to have some live interaction if you want to join us. There's an amazing group of humans. And part of this offer, I think one of the most valuable parts is I always include a Facebook group. And there is just a beautiful cosmic family waiting for you. I've seen so many relationships develop and communities. So you'll have that advantage as well, where I can come in and offer channeled content and answers to questions as well.
Amazing. And
it was incredible.
In all of my work with you, every time when we do interviews, if I've listened to a transmission, as I've had private sessions with you, always, it's like the chills, the visceral reactions that I physically attune to as we go through it. It's just on a whole nother level. The connection is amazing. Judith is shaking her head. Yes, I see you, Judith, right? It's absolutely phenomenal. So it's such beautiful facilitation. Facilitation work, that's just, none of those words suffice. It's just so much.
We got a lot of support in this course, and it took us above and beyond where universal law and teachings around manifestation have been focused. It's very collectively focused in terms of our process, as I mentioned. But at the same time, what I loved was I got some very simplistic takeaways that I've implemented in my life that have been so incredibly powerful. So, yeah, good stuff.
It's great stuff. And I have to share, I've listened to sessions I've had with Micheila from 3-4 years ago. And the relevance and the energy and things that are flowed through, they're still relevant. There's still an acclamation. There's still an invitation into the expansion that comes in. And, Jeshua coming in, Mother Teresa, me welling up at the time when the energies are welling in, it's still present today. It's amazing. It's amazing. So again, anything Micheila, yes. And the special offer through Beyond the Ordinary is just such a gift to be able to go in at this price point, and just the energy exchange is so beautiful that I highly recommend it. And I hope you all take advantage of it. It's $127. There's a 2-payment option on it. It's just beautiful, beautiful transmission with Micheila and the guides that are showing through. So take advantage of it. Again, the link's in the chat box, or you can get to the special offer page. I was trying to spit it out by going to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Micheila23. Y'all know where to find it now. And let's jump on to Q&A. And Judith, yes, let's get you to unmute yourself, please.
Hi, John. Hi, Micheila. Okay, so I did Inner Circle 15 and Inner Circle 16. And I have to say, Micheila, just such a beautiful experience working with this grid has been. it answered. It's anybody who's thinking about doing this, I just want to say, go do it. Go backwards, do everything behind, go forwards. Micheila has a mystery school, and it really is. It's you know, I have been looking for a mystery school, and this is for real. And the grid is just such a powerful expression, and it feels like that is my purpose, was to be part of this grid work, and that it was such an honor, and the people that are involved with it's just transformative, and your guidance through it. It's so much fun to have those moments that are so beautiful and juicy and send them to the grid. I mean, it just feels like my first job is to meditate and send love into this, because it's like I have this opportunity to really make a difference in all the chaos and all the crazy. This is something tangible and real that I can do, it feels so important and vital and like such a gift. So Micheila, I just love that I can say thank you to you, and I send my love to you and to everybody who's in the group and to everyone who's on this call and to John. I mean, it's just a blessing, and I know I'm a little like I don't even have the words.
Isn't it wonderful that when you're being of service, that you're actually receiving that same love as well?
Oh my God.
The system
attunes
into something beyond what you were caring before, that you're doing it for others, but simultaneously.
Well, spoiler alert. I'll do a little spoiler alert. We are the grid. You know, this is what we find out is we're the living grid. You know, what we were led into is a more physical replica of a vibrational experience that we're having all of the time. But the power is we get to interact with it at will and be intentional in it. And I think that's where the magic starts to happen, when we begin to connect the dots that we are the spirit, we're the warrior, we're all of it. And in every moment, in every day, we have this choice. And so that's what I took away. And I think is so incredibly potent right now at a time when it's difficult to, physical.
Can I ask you a question? Because I know that it's. I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask you if you had a direct question so we can take some more calls also.
Yes. So for me, it's really been about giving to the grid but is it appropriate there have been times of sorrow when I've wanted to bring it to the grid, but I felt like that wasn't necessarily the right vibration to bring to it, because we're trying to lift and raise. And so it was more like I would then take it to Sophia or to Mama Gaia or Mary Magdalene. I use a lot of that. I think of Mary in the cave all the time. I'm like, Mary in the cave, I'm Mary in the cave, I'm Mary in the cave. Does it detract when you maybe bring some of the heavier things that I'm feeling to like just kind of go be with the grid? Or does it not matter?
Well, first, I think it's really important that we immerse in those emotions right now. We don't get stuck there, but we acknowledge them. Right. Because they do bring us back into balance, back into harmony. And as we were talking about, John, it's not just ours. We're becoming more collectively focused and coherent. But this grid intelligence that we're working with is actually clearing us as well. So what we learned through the course is that you can these arcs that are cresting, these energetic arcs that are cresting through our grid, and allow it to, like a sponge, absorb whatever is needed from us. And it's really that simple. So I wouldn't overthink it too much. Okay. But I love how you lean on the guides, as well. And Mary Magdalene has come in so many times. I'm actually channeling an entire transmission book future through her. And it's been one of the most profound experiences personally, because she's so human. She talks about her feelings and how she was in fear and she had times of sadness, and confusion, and how she was taught to not ignore that and work with it and understand it better. And I think we're being called to that, right now in challenging times, to not suppress anymore, not inconstructively share as they have before, but to consciously immerse and let it be there.
Yeah, beautiful. June, thank you so much.
Thank you so much to both of you. Love you, Micheila.
Oh, thank you. Love you too.
Yeah, Mary Magdalene has been coming in so strongly, and it's her grace is it's just badass.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I agree.
Badass. It's okay.
Yeah.
and that's not something you'd associate, but her presence, it's so strong and so firm, and it's loving, but it is
badass.
She's fierce in it.
Yeah.
Well, I think she's so reliant on who she is and what she knows.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've lost along the way.
Right.
If we look back, we've kind of lost our sense of knowing and being, and that's what she represents. And that's why she can be so soft and at the same time so strong.
Yeah.
And courageous, I think.
Again, the chills.
Yeah.
So wonderful. All right, let's go to another question. Now, someone came in. It's Graham, you found a feather today also when I love it. Where's the question? Because it's important to ask. I want to bring in, so Kathy writes, how do you bring in your higher self in the morning?
I request and call it in as an intention. That's, and I've actually evolved through different processes of activating my higher self throughout the years. And I did an entire course on this, actually. It's on my website if anyone's interested. But something I learned very early on when I was channeling was to, request, call in my higher self and wait for her to arrive. And everyone's a little different. Some people will feel or sense, and I could actually see a version of myself come in. And then I could sit back and let my higher self carry on a conversation with my current consciousness. Wow. And that's pretty interesting, but you have to be totally out of resistance, to that. But what I found along the way is the second you acknowledge your higher self in some form, that it exists, that it's there, you can work with and call it in at will. And again, I always defer in the morning to my higher self when my day looks a little overwhelming or I'm feeling confused. Please invite in my higher self to lead and guide me through the day. And I often will do that in meditation as well. And I find that my day gets easier, like the synchronicities. If I think about something that I need, I immediately am led to something supportive. And that's how the higher self works. It's a collective vision that steps in, that oversees all of your activity from that viewpoint that you can't carry as a singular soul. But simplify it and just call in.
How important, I need to rephrase that because we already know the answer. Y'all know I'm already implied it. It is important. But our spiritual hygiene, our daily practices to not forget to do it on a consistent basis. And I love it if you can just ground that in for all of us on this call and the implications of doing it and of not doing it.
Well, we're building a muscle. That's what happens. And every day we're faced with these new challenges in physical, but our goal is to ensure that we're in this centered space of peace so that all the support we need from the universe can become recognized by us as we're outside of meditation. And I think that's what the mindfulness practice or whatever you choose to do is so helpful. It's not always what you receive in those moments. And that's where I think people get stuck is they want the downloads and the channeled messages and tell me why and what. But if you just do a practice every day, you're setting your energy field into alignment such that everything that we're meant to receive, we will. This is how we were designed. Our technology is meant to retrieve from other dimensions while we're in physical doing the things that we're doing. So those things start to blend when we strengthen that muscle, physical, non-physical. begin to logically work together and make life easier for us.
Well, and I love that you're saying also, because for me, it's like if we don't have an agenda, and we're building a new relationship, and we're not referencing the past, we're actually building into the new as well. By being with it and being in the presence and allowing it to flow instead of thinking that we want a particular something, it opens up the field of potentiality for us to expand the visions of what can be plucked from the field.
Absolutely. Yeah. Source. We source that way.
Yeah.
When we get out of our own way, it's incredible what Source has planned for us. We have this divine plan that we came with, and it happens automatically.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's wonderful. All right, let's get to another live caller. Laura, will you unmute yourself?
Hello, and thank you so much. I've been a follower of yours, Micheila, for a few years, and your insights have always been very valuable and rooted and grounded, which I very much appreciated. And I am very much of this mindset of the warrior and the need for the training and creating a special practice that gets us rooted into the day. And I ask from the perspective of not everyone necessarily feeling like does everyone have the warrior archetype? Because Carolyn Mason, her Sacred Contracts work, says that some people have the warrior archetype in the other 8 archetypes compared to the 4 survival archetypes we all share. But then some people don't. And it's very different being a warrior compared to a soldier that gets paid to take orders, compared to the warrior that knows what they stand for and won't be paid or bought out and have the prostitute step in. So that's kind of context for where my question is coming from.
Makes a lot of sense. And I understand why you would go there. But I actually feel that this true warrior spirit that the guides are bringing us closer to is more of an essence. It's an ability to walk through challenges that we're all wired with. So I look at it as less of an archetype and more of a part of our technology that carries a common thread through all of us, but obviously has to manifest a little bit differently, than what we've been taught. So this warrior spirit is really more focused on how we connect somewhere in a collective hologram by navigating our own personal one, and how that can implicate and implement things in the world that are supportive of transition and change. I haven't studied, and I know of Caroline Miss, and I know of all of the archetypes. I haven't studied it so much in detail, but I know the warrior is sometimes associated with, what the guides were calling as like an inauthentic action in the world, where we're calling people out or standing up against things and speaking our truth. And although I think that's necessary sometimes, and some people are here to do those things, what they're tying our warrior to is our service, our unique ability to touch the human condition with something that makes an impact. So I hope that makes sense and differentiates a little bit between what you're asking and where the guides are leading us in this course.
I love that. Thank you. And can you clarify what the difference between essence and archetype is?
You know what? The archetypes seem to be something that have come through patterns, generations of time, where these common parts of us have developed into really strong waveform, really strong individualized identities, where our essence is something that flows. I feel like when we come in as a soul, the soul essence, it does have an individualized divine plan, a purpose that's collective in nature. But it's always meant to change based on the outer world and how we're being called and how humanity evolves. So it's not so stagnant, it really has the ability to shift. But these archetypal patterns seem to be more rigid, I think, and carried through time in a similar way.
Thank you. Brilliant.
It's interesting what comes up for me in the warrior spirit, and I want to discuss this with both of y'all. Because for me, there's a consciousness that we're attuning to also in the warrior aspect, that it's an integrity within ourselves that is attuning into an alignment that we're aware of. The consciousness that many of us are stepping into, and the collective really has the opportunity to, is that war has never ended wars. And so to approach the archetype and the warrior spirit and to carry that forward, we're really in the consciousness that you're holding would diminish your capacity to actually activate others in your service by being in integrity with the light that you're bringing for yourself. And so that warrior within that's balancing that integrity, that's doing this dance with its shadow and its light, acclimating all of it, is what's being birthed through that tension that we would consider war inside of us. But it's refining and it's activating and it's uplifting. And from that space, we let go of the contraction with others and the judgments as to right or wrong, and we carry the essence of truth. And in that, when you can see that profundity of truth, there's no need for war. It just stands. It's the Mary Magdalene type of energy. It just is. And she knows it through experience, through embodiment, through the warring that she went through and what she's attuned through. And now is sharing with us in her essence. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I think ascension is reviewing history through the eyes of higher consciousness. And that's how we continually ascend and transition and expand. It's meeting history through new eyes. Yeah. And interacting in history differently than what we have before. Because what you're talking about, it brings back an interesting passage I was just reading from a channeled writing I did this morning about imprints or imprinting. And we have only so much bandwidth to carry history in our minds and in our bodies. But what happens is we create these imprints around history. And similar imprints like anger or fear take up space, whereby it becomes a filter for experiencing our current reality. So yes, war is war, but war shows up in so many different lights with our neighbor, with our family members, on Facebook, in the world. And if we don't have the bandwidth of consciousness to see this similarity between that, then we aren't going to be able to ascend it. And that's really what this passage was leading us to.
Wow. Laura, such a great conversation you brought up. Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Way to do the work. So awesome. All right, let's go to another caller here. David, if you can unmute.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, none.
Well, I had a unique experience in the forest, speaking about working with some fear. And I like to go into the forest at night and do some meditation. And during that experience, something flew above me into the trees and was kind of speaking like a bird or a chipmunk language. And so I thought that was cool, but I got a little nervous after a while. And so I left that particular place, and it followed me from tree to tree. And I didn't have the intuitive ability to understand what it was trying to communicate. So I was just curious if you had any feedback on that.
Well, what I have found oftentimes, especially with people who are very drawn to nature, is that interdimensional and extraterrestrial contact will come through very physically familiar life forms. So what we may think is the bird or the deer that's communicating with us in a really interesting way might actually be a guide, might actually, because we get into the zone where we're matching these interdimensional frequencies, our vibration changes, we begin to vibrate higher, and now we have this telekinetic connection, to communicate, but it just shows up in a way that we would accept, or recognize. So that's what I'm sensing about your experience. And again, I've had this come in so many different, readings and other people where their connection to nature brings in animals, and the animals are ambassadors or representation of some intergalactic communication.
Micheila, is there anything when that comes up, again, we have this apprehension or that unknown comes in, it's like, I'm a little nervous, I don't know if I want to be around it. What can we do to attune to see if it's really there to serve us or if it's something else?
Yeah, and I know this sounds difficult to accept, but you can communicate with anything. You can communicate with anything. So the animal that's making the sound or the intergalactic that's sending a message, I always like questioning when fear arises in these situations. Default to detective mode because it changes your vibration. So if there's anything that's unknown and you don't understand, begin to ask, what is it? Who are you? Why are you here? Why are you following me? What are you attempting to communicate? Even if it's in your mind and you don't speak it out loud. But trust what you get back. Because this is how a lot of people start having these direct conversations, with beings and guides and, channeling and all of these things. And it happens with me all of the time. But I think the more that I trusted it over the years, like building the muscle we were talking about in meditation, the more it comes in and the more it's just second nature. So I've even taught this. We have a youth group that we work with in our organization. And we have a lot of kids who have these experiences and they just are, they don't understand. So they become confused and they're in fear. And we teach them to go into detective mode, start asking questions. What can you find out about what this is, why they're here? Why are they contacting you? And usually the fear melts away because we find out that there's some greater purpose that we have. And a lot of times with mediums and young children who are mediums, they're here to actually help, these souls along or to receive messages to heal the planet or to work with others. So once we get into that questioning mode, we may be very surprised at how much purpose we find in what's beginning to happen around us as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for calling in.
You're welcome.
So good. All right, let's go now. There's a question that came in from Marge. And Marge writes, Micheila, what is the role of our ego in this new energy? How do we tailor it? Should we recognize it and integrate it rather than blaming it? What is its optimal role?
Well, the ego is always looked at as something negative that we're meant to abolish or get rid of, when in fact, our ego self, when put in the right alignment, is very, very beneficial and can even help us to serve. But the false ego is what we're very used to working through. And the false ego establishes a sense of self through others, when in fact, we're meant to see how valuable and unique we are on the planet and differentiate ourselves. So the guides brought up something really interesting not too long ago, where we're attempting to find unity consciousness by all being the same. When we find people who believe in the things that we believe in, we feel this sense of safety and unity consciousness, when in fact, unity relies upon diversity, which seems pretty opposite, but that's how we put this whole intricate matrix and structure together, is that we are all completely unique. So I think the first thing we need to do is acknowledge that our truth and our uniqueness has value. And it's not because we're here to convert others or to share it with others deliberately, but because we're here to live it. That's what the ego helps us to do. It helps us to know who we are, what we believe in, and how to create a life through that. And that life is what touches others. Right. And so right now on the planet, we're seeing the ego driving a lot of debate and, a lot of fighting, and polarity and things like that, attempting to rectify and prove truth, when in fact, there could be no one truth for every human, and truth is an evolving experience. So when the ego gets into the realm of accepting that, it can be put right into alignment where it supports us better, so that we make the influence we need, not through force, but through personal change.
It's so amazing. It's so amazing. And you're speaking truths, Micheila. So beautiful. I'm gonna take another question, but I want to take you all back to the special offer, because it's about this time of transition. Well, every time's a time of transition. Let's be clear about that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But this great time of transition where we're feeling so vividly running in our bodies and throughout the world, and we're front rows, center seats for so many different experiences. We just have to decide what we're choosing. But the special offer, again, to transition abundantly, as Micheila writes, and in alignment with the desired outcomes, even in the world where it seems impossible to have that come into your world. It's just, there's so much wisdom being taught here. There's so much attunement that's happening with Micheila, with what you're embodying, and also channeling in and sounding out loud for others to hear through your teachings. And so this course is amazing, y'all. Again, take advantage of it. The link, April will I am not even looking at the chat box. It's probably already in there. If not, I know she's going to type it in a second. Or again, you can access the special offer by going to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Micheila23. And let's go to our next caller here. There's questions that were coming in, but I lost it. So Betty, let me get you two on mute, please.
Here we go. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, it's so fascinating because okay, so first of all, I have found feathers every day for a week, and I keep feeling Mother Mary, so just have to say that. Secondly, I never in a million years thought I was even going to push the button tonight, and then something randomly did. And then I was checking in with my body to, like, for yes or no, and so my question has changed 100 times since you've started talking, Micheila. And so I was just checking in to see, like, I go, okay, let me check in to see if I can tell in my body, like, truths or not truths, yes or no's, right? And so this would be interesting to hear what you have to say about it, because I'm learning a lot about how our body talks to us. So I was just checking in. I go, oh, am I going to get picked? And it got no. So clearly it wasn't working. So do you have more about how to tap into our body, and also that the resistance is just huge with me, and the ego, it just comes in, even though I know I'm connected and I've been coaching forever and have things to say, but I just really feel resistance. And so just adjusting that a little bit more.
Well, I think that's where the no came from, from the ego and the resistance. It didn't come from, the body. But the interesting thing about this question is we're all wired so differently when it comes to extrasensory and discerning through the body. And I can tell you how I do it, and I can get into session with you, and we can uncover a myriad of different ways and gifts and, things that you brought to the planet. But I think it has to be through the relaxation of the mind, and in as much as possible, getting yourself a little outside of the body, which sounds contradictory to what we've been talking about, but I want to explain why. We are electromagnetic beings. So not only are we wired to connect to the earth and the universe, but each other. And we have this extrasensory, built-in system that is always working for us. But because through the years we've been, forced into the mind and into singularity, we sometimes default to that, and we begin to question. So here's a little trick that, as a channel, I was taught, and I, did very early on, and still do today when I'm at large events, is I literally drive myself out of the body as an observer. Now, I still can feel, and it's just a weird kind of a thing, but I want to encourage you to try this. Even going into meditation, imagine yourself driving off in a car, or just putting yourself in another room. You're still sitting here, and you're going to meditate and breathe, and you're going to have all the sensations and experiences that you need to have, but the rest of you is hanging out over there. And the more that you practice this, what you'll find is you're going to make more of an authentic connection to the body. You're going to feel the guides come in. You're going to feel the yeses and the nos. You're going to understand where it comes from. For me, it comes from a certain side. Maybe for you, it's going to come in a warm or a cool or a hot, or maybe it's going to come through a huge rush for a no and nothing for a yes. It's just all so different and unique. But we have to carve out, that niche. We have to be able to uncover and find it. And I think it sounds really hard to do, but I think it's far easier than what we make it, because the second we feel it and the second we trust it, it's like riding a bike. Then we can rely on it constantly, and it's going to strengthen. And then we don't have to, we're going to be in body, we'll be walking around, and we're going to get those feelings and those knowings without having to default to the mind. And I'll also give you another, thing to consider. And I can only describe it in the way that I experience it. I'm a channel, so I'm extremely clairaudient. So my hearing is just like I hear little, rings in the wall. It drives me insane. But there's a subtle difference when I'm hearing something that's coming from outside of me, like a guide or a being, or I'm hearing something that's coming from within. Mm-hmm. And it's like a little subtle ring or a different quality, or comes from just a little different place. And we all have this too. And it's just a subtle difference between whether it's you or whether it's something else. And I encourage everyone to practice that if you can, tuning into these little subtleties, these little nuances, and it's really going to help you, I think, to distinguish between the mind and where the body is leading us.
A great question. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Really.
You're welcome.
That's such great advice. Micheila, I also find as I practice more, as I allow it to come to me instead of me chasing it, if you will. My body feels different. I'm not tired. I'm not trying to I'm not running my energy. I'm at one with, or I am acclimating to what's coming through me. And it's night and day the way I feel it in my body.
I'm glad you said that, because something that the guides almost always say in session when people are having trouble distinguishing or getting guidance is not to go into meditation with a question. Because we do that so much. Like, we have an end goal when we make these connections, and what we can receive is usually far greater and more important than the question in our mind, and how we've narrowed or put an expectation around an outcome.
Yeah, so wonderful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Again, helpful words in the chat box. We're going to send the replay out a little bit later this evening. You can come back and listen to it. You can watch the video. Micheila, would you be open to sharing a channel transmission as we end the call tonight?
Sure. Right now, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's go ahead. All right. We are going to work with Lakshmi. We have Ishtar. I welcome Ishtar and Lakshmi. We do have Divine Mother. I welcome her. We're going to work with a collective.
Oh my God, I feel
as we're all here today.
Wow.
And Ishtar takes center stage.
Mm.
We come together today to offer you not only a transmission of love and support, but to bring you closer to the support and love that exists within, knowing there could be no separation between what we are here offering and what you are able to receive. And so we begin with the analogy that the human soul is often observing what it must clear, the densities and the past traumas, the histories that it associates with, as holding itself back in some way, seeing the damage of what the past has created that prevents a future that is most desired. But it is the acknowledgement of what is light that easily activates and overcomes this presence of what you desire to remove. So as we stand here today with you, we offer a transmission that supports this activation of light by going deeper into the self to uncover the unique aspect of God that you have decided to be. On the planet today, God walks amongst you in many forms, regardless of the judgments, regardless of the differences. You are seeing a mirror reflection of God that has decided to take on an identity. And that identity is not separate of your own, but often showing you a reflection of where love is more amply and necessarily needed, not only within you, but to share. As you take a breath with us now, diving deeper into this light that you are, understand that a wellspring of knowledge exists just within your grasp, within your fingertips, within the vault of your DNA, and within your mind. It is so massive that it can only show up as the light that you are, equaling its abundance and reclaiming it on the earth as the human shape and form that you have taken. You are not here to receive abundance. You are abundance, sharing with others. And to move into the realm of possibility is to acknowledge that you are not here only for the material experience, that which you must receive that keeps you in alignment with health and longevity, with nourishment and with warmth. But to experience all that you are through the energy of others and through the physical relationships that you've assembled in your life. This is the greatest currency that you may exchange. To hold yourself in this high regard is to walk with us as the ascended master you are, to reclaim the warrior spirit that you are meant to find that exists in the here and now and is available to you with the very next breath, amplifying this light greater as it shines beyond your auric field into the entire earth community, all living beings, plants, animals, all elements and properties of earth. You are Sophia in motion. You are God, you are light, you are source, you are one. And with your coherent heart, you capture it all and bring it in as the nourishment of the prana that runs through you, as life force is generated and ideas become your offering. As you stand now ready to implement these ideas, not through force, but through alchemy and balance, you are becoming the greatest evolution of your spirit self, emotion. This is how we see you. This is how you appear to us. We can see not the darkness, the densities that are an everyday presence, acknowledged by your soul. We can only see the possibility and the light that you are in action. As you breathe in deep, you accept all of this wisdom and integrate it personally for your journey ahead. As you do, it is matching every potential that you require to manifest in the coming weeks and months, offering you beyond the source of guidance and knowing, but pure connection to the truth of who you are. Many blessings.
Oh my goodness. Compose myself.
Ishtar is such a powerful, powerful presence. I have not worked with her before, but when she walks through me, I feel like I'm walking on air. She's just very strong.
Oh, my heart is doing this thing that, and I have to call it a thing for the lack of the better words because I'm traveling with it right now.
Yeah.
So beautiful. The love. Y'all, I feel that love of each and every one of you here on this call. We get to witness that for each other and receive the gift for each other. Just thank each and every one of you. Micheila, my God, amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's always wonderful.
We enjoyed being here.
Yeah, we enjoyed having you here, so thank you. The special offer, y'all know where to find it. The replay will come back out a little bit later. Come back into this place of this heart resonance. God, come swim in this the rest of the weekend. Why wouldn't you? We'll send the replay out later. Y'all, thank you. I love you. I look forward to seeing you on the next call. Bye-bye.
Wow. Well, that's exciting, guys. Thank you for tuning in for the whole thing. Well, that is a woman I have learned from 2017. No, more than that. I think I found her when I was still in England. So 2015, 5 years. I've been listening to her, or right around the time when I came back. But I actually moved back from England 5 years ago today. So it's a significant day. I got to speak with Micheila Sheldon today, which is excellent as well. I'm quite excited. That's amazing. Very cool. And then also a year ago, I got out of the mental health system, and I was a prisoner for 2.5 weeks, and I learned what it means when you lose your freedom and how easy it is. And if we don't know our rights, we don't have any. And if we don't know how to ask questions, then they can convince you of things that you didn't agree to, but they will make you think that you did if you don't have your wits about you, which is why we really have to become masters of our own selves, which is why connecting yourself to mentors and people who are further down the lane to where you are, further down the path to peace, inner peace, is what matters right now more than anything. And so if you are available on Thursday, October 22nd at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time until around 7, I'm going to be gathering with Richard Gordon, who is out of California. CEO Dojo is his alias. And Richard and I will be co-hosting a peace summit to be able to help us create a virtues-based foundation for this new world that we're creating. And teachers like Micheila and many others that I've discovered in my travels around the world over the last decade, they are the people that I will be highlighting and featuring to the best of my ability, just to give you as many opportunities to access truth that resonates for you as possible, because that's truly what all of this is about. It's about understanding what's ours and what someone else is telling us is ours, but is actually theirs. They're projecting. Projections are very powerful. I learned a lot about that when I lived in England, because over there I was fitting into a ready-made life. I had a microwave family, 2 kids and a partner, and then eventually a dog. It's like I had the full life. I was a supported housewife that wasn't married, living over there with my mentor and someone that I loved and appreciated, but wasn't necessarily respected by, because I wasn't doing things that were respectable by esteem of common society in terms of finances. I was looking after the house and groceries and helping him in his business and helping the kids and the dog, and I was doing other things. I had an organic skincare consulting business as well on the side. And I loved it. And I did parties and events and I got myself out, but I didn't have a traditional social circle when I was over there. I had individuals, and I had a group of ladies in Worcester that were further along the path. And Maria Jones was a huge teacher for me around astrology and crystals, and Zora Cholmondeley as well. She's amazing. She did some journeys with me and took me to retrieve aspects of my soul that had been fragmented off, as what happens when we go through trauma, or some kind of crisis that ultimately fractures our sense of presence and leaves part of us there, and then the rest of us leaves, and then it's like we need to mark a cross where a part of ourselves died, and we need to go back and find what that part was, and then be able to reintegrate the spirit of ourselves that we left there, because that was a child we didn't know how to care for at the time, and now we do, so we can bring them back in. And these are the things that some of my English girlfriends helped me do. Rita Davies as well, from Healing Touch in Worcester. She was my masseuse, absolutely amazing. She's got magical hands, and she did some journeys with me while I was in there, and actually called me Little White Wolf, and basically said that I had been underground in the underground worlds for a long time because I was so hurt by how humanity were hurting the planet. And then I had come out now because it's time, and we've got to change the way that we treat ourselves, that we need to change the way we treat the world, and we need to change the way we treat each other. And all of that requires inner strength like we've never had to develop before. And so I am doing my best to share some of these people that gave me secrets, gave me tools, gave me keys that you can use to unlock aspects of yourself, because hidden potential is what it's all about. And even what I've been working on for the last 3.5 years with the sacred sojourn of the soul through the hero's journey from a spiritual perspective, it keeps coming to me. Like even the dark night of the soul that we so oftentimes hear about, that actually becomes a KNIGHT, silent night or dark night of the soul. But actually, it's not the soul that's going through that at all. It's the ego. So it's actually the dark night of the ego, which is very perfect for the victim experience that the hero requires from an archetypal perspective. Because the victim at the bottom looking up at the rescuer to save them from the punisher who's out to get them ultimately keeps us on this cycle of reactivity, of needing to respond to an offense. And how do you win a game on the offense? You don't. Or on the defense? You don't. You win it on the offense. And yet we have to understand that, as was mentioned, you can't fight fire with fire. You can't make something happen. Like Mother Teresa said, if you host an anti-war rally, I will never come. But host a rally for peace and I will be there. It's like I was given at work a gentleman that's involved with some peace rallies in Hamilton. He actually gave me this book the day before my birthday as a gift, unexpectedly, but thank you. And he basically said, read that. And I flipped to a page tonight, which is very relevant, actually. I read it to my friend whose birthday it is. Happy birthday, Vivek. And in here, in Mother of Peace, which I don't know how to say her name expressly, but Hak Jean Han Moon, she says that our missionaries were persecuted for nothing other than faith in the true parents. Was truly a sorrowful reality of history, and their determination to advance was the glory of history. Chosen members went to every corner of the globe. Despite suffering and danger, they leapt into many kinds of work, organizing social projects, establishing schools, providing vocational training, cultivating the wilderness, building factories, houses, and communities, and raising the necessary funds by their own wits and heaven's assistance. Each time I saw missionaries cut off to cross unfamiliar seas and continents, the limitation of what I could give them pained me. I encouraged them by saying that when our dreams are realized, God will give us all the greatest of blessings. Seeing how these words strengthened their resolve, I realized that spiritual encouragement was stronger support than any physical provisions. And how befitting that tonight Micheila Sheldon was talking about the true warrior spirit, in that each of us have within us the ability to go to war and feed the dragon. But we also have the ability to know how to go to battle because we've practiced enough that we choose not to, that we choose to instead take a stand in peace, that we unite in the name of peace, which is what the summit next week at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 22nd of October will be. And I hope that you will come along. And also, if you're not already subscribed to the email series that I'm sending out daily with messages, including videos like these that I am working to do daily for the 66 Days of Transforming Your Self-Image, which is the email series that I'm sending out to people right now, you can go to ljeh.ca, because I am the true Canadian life coach, empowerment coach, soul coach. I am not the only one. There are many of us, because a coach is 99% of who you are. It's 1% technique, in fact. So many people that are basing their entire livelihoods on becoming a coach, oftentimes it's important more so to watch how they're walking, not just how they're talking, because ultimately we can only ever lead someone to the level that we have went. And sometimes we find someone that's further down the path to where we are, and they're not yet where we want to go. And so we can't just stop by accepting that what they've been through or see to be possible is true. That's just their best explanation or understanding of it. Then we have to understand what coaching truly is, which is about asking the questions that draw out answers from the individual that were always there, just unseen. And when we understand that, then we can dig deeper into it. So, good and evil, the she devil, was the thought that came to me earlier, because if you actually take the D on good and put it into evil, then that's when you have the she devil sitting on your shoulder saying, you should really consider this. It's a really good idea, even when you know that it's not, because your angelic self is saying, come on now, you know that that's not going to help you. Let's just focus on the mission. And then the she devil distracts you and says, well, let's just do something else instead. Let's go eat something sugary, especially, and shut down our motivational needs, shut down our motivational abilities. We have to understand, one of the pieces of advice I'm going to end this evening with was from Brenda Williams, who I had seen do an interview on Gaia TV. And it was very profound, and it was about the heart and the magnetic field. And she talked about the triad wave, which is a soundtrack, a frequency that is embedded with the correct healing tones and frequencies and sounds to be able to really support and uplift. And one of the things that she had said when I reached out to her after seeing that interview, and basically offering to be one of the people that help get that soundtrack out, and then also wanted to just connect and gain access to some of her wisdom and insights, which we'll be connecting tomorrow. So hopefully I'll be able to interview her on my podcast soon. But what Brenda said to me that's so key is no distractions and no fatigue. We have to really be understanding that as we step up as light bearers in a bigger way, we will get attacked. And when we're trying to do something big, we have to understand that the souls that are meant to be there oftentimes will get taken away from being able to be so by the dark side that is afraid of the light uniting, because that's where our power is. And the dark forces know it, because if the fire gets too big, the shadows all disappear. So it's time for us to become that luminous warrior, which the Muneki writes, which is the Peruvian shamanism that not Drunvalo Melchizedek, which he's got Living in the Heart, a phenomenal book and resource to be able to look into about the center point of us, which ties into the Gateway Report of the CIA that you can look into. But Drunvalo Melchizedek, with his book, he has the center of the apple core essentially is us. And then we're the center of that toroidal field. So that came into my awareness a few years ago. And I've had that book since before I moved back from England as well. Books are heavy to ship back, just FYI. If you have as many as what I do. But who I was speaking about before I tuned into Drunvalo Melchizedek was Roberto Villaldo, with the Muneki writes, and he actually has a really cool shaman tarot deck as well that I got when I went to see Matt Kahn and Gabrielle Bernstein at the Hay House Summit. He talks about what does he talk about that I was going to share with you? I can't remember what Drunvalo. Oh, about the luminous warrior. Yeah, that's what the whole point of the Muneki rites is. The Muneki rites are a way to plant seeds of empowerment within the luminous light body of the warriors that we all are, which I need to listen back to the section of the question or the interview that I was listening to where I asked the question, because I got distracted by the next question. But ultimately, sometimes we're interrupted from doing what would not be for the highest good, which would have went into me announcing the Peace Summit that I'm hosting, which would be like stealing the show, and I can contact her privately, which is a more respectful way to go about that. So that's likely the reason that I got distracted. But I'm curious what was shared in between where I felt that I was actually still able to contribute, but had kind of turned my ability to contribute off because I felt like it's their show, and so wanting to respect that, right? We have to really understand territory, and ultimately, no distractions, no fatigue, stay at the top of your game, self-actualize, master yourself by mastering your emotions, make them your friend. And ultimately, if you are willing to do the inner work, then you will not go without. But if you fail to go within, you will go without. So I hope this message serves you. I send you massive amounts of love. If this is your first time tuning into my work, I appreciate you. And I will always bring you the most transparent and authentic version of me possible, because that, I hope, gives you permission to show up fully in the world and to discover your sweet spot or what you're here for in the way that these feel like for me, which is the reason that I do them, in the abundance that I do them. So I hope that you will subscribe, share this message with a friend that needs to hear some of Micheila's work, hear some of my work, and ultimately, if you want to encourage them just to play music medicine or to play movie medicine, since it is a 2-hour show, what I would encourage you to do is just tell them to click on the piece in the show that they feel called to, and then you can literally listen to that part of the session and you will get the message that you need. If you tune in for longer, then you'll get more, of course. But sometimes when there's a really long piece of something that you don't necessarily have time to watch the whole of, you can just click on the part of it where you feel drawn to and then listen to that piece, because sometimes that's all you really need from it. And then to actually go away and ruminate on it, marinate in it, and then actually take it in works really, really well for actually then deciding what the message means to you, what the message means for you, and what you're going to do with the message, which is what I always encourage you to take away from everything that I do and everything that everyone else does too. Because the reality is that the quality of our lives becomes a direct reflection of the quality of questions we're willing to ask ourselves, and the ability to sit in the discomfort of finding that answer from the unknown and then actually taking action on that unknown to create a new unknown that we desire, which ultimately isn't going to be comfortable. But as Robin Sharma says, change is messy at the beginning, it's chaotic in the beginning, it's messy in the middle, and it's divine in the end, as long as we actually stick with it to completion. And we're in this together. There is no quitting. We're on assignment. We're on mission. We're more powerful than we could even imagine. And we just need to unite with others who believe in us long enough for us to believe in ourselves, which is the spiritual encouragement piece from Mother of Peace book. So I look forward to hearing what this message means to you, what this message means for you, and what you're going to do with it now that you've heard the end of it. So thank you for tuning in. I sing sometimes, and that's the end. Have a good night, my friend. Toodaloo, Laura J. Namaste. Great to see you. Thank you.